Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, good. So what I wanted to do today is move out of this light. I wanted to, first of all, look at some of the trends that we've been seeing happening in the education space. Some of it you're probably familiar with. Hopefully some of it might be surprising or guiding. Then I'll talk a little bit about what we've been doing at Imperial over the last couple of years, and give you some examples, and hopefully there's some time for some questions, and maybe you can give me some answers to some. Because what I wanted to start with is a picture from 1910 about what the year 2000 would look like in the classroom. And if you're gonna if we are all in the business of imagining what the future would look like in terms of learning and teaching, we have to remind ourselves that when we paint these future pictures, they might have some elements that are right, but some elements that are also horribly wrong. So first of all, this was at a time where electricity was invented, so they were thinking about electrocuting students and churning books into their brains. I'm missing the aspect of social learning, and I think diversity is also not very high on the agenda. But I think it's an important image because we're trying to paint these images constantly and figure out what works and what doesn't. And I guess that's the approach that we took at Imperial to start with. So let's look at what we then see in. So I'm going to try and paint that picture, but obviously it's going to be wrong. But hopefully some good ideas are part of it. So some societal trends I wanted to start with was to say we do have a demographic change. I don't know if you know the book, The 100-Year Career. So the 60-year career, the 100-year life. Essentially, as we are becoming older, the necessity to have multiple careers or the ability to have multiple careers is important. And that means that learning is a continuous part of our life, or should be, at least. We have a fourth industrial revolution, as the World Economic Forum calls it, where they're saying, and again, this is all remains how far this will really permeate throughout societies, but there is some evidence to say that technology is disrupting a number of industries, and that needs for workforces to adapt. We see a rise of blended learning with, thank you for the speaker just before, because that was very instructive. We do see more and more research pointing that blending is the way to go, and it does improve the way we teach and learn. But it's something that one has to learn, and it's really hard to do. And then also the new generations that are coming online, they are changing their ways of learning. So in a way, they are bringing their own services, devices, ideas into the classroom, and universities are almost at the end of it as recipients of this new technology, and the teachers that are coming up the ranks will use technology differently. And I think that's going to impact, and that kind of impacts the way we're looking at transformation, because IT departments have to really carefully look at how they are actually managing this. You know, the technology of our students that they have at home and in their hands is many, many times better than anything we can provide. And there's no way we can invest the amounts, the millions that are invested in the social media platforms and all that to provide such a seamless online experience. That's a really big challenge for universities. And then I think last but definitely very important point is that there is a global need for education. I mean, there's just a huge gap in between the demand globally for high quality education and the people that can actually give it. And I mean, we as Imperial, we only have about 13,000 students. That is the tiny fraction of what is actually needed. So I guess that was also informing the way we were looking at what we should do when it comes to online and digital. So that's kind of the societal trends. Now let's see what others are doing in the system. So what system? So this is one way of looking at what we've seen in the market. I want to make a distinction between learning management systems and learning experience systems, and I think that's a big shift. We came 20, 30 years ago with a great tool called Blackboard, Moodle and Canvas or others that came up, and they're really focused on managing learners. But what you've seen in the rise of the Coursera's, edX, FutureLearns, the 2U, Get Smarters, and then maybe Slack and Mentimeters, and I'll talk to them a bit longer, is that they really focus on the learning and teaching experience itself more than the traditional management system has done. And I think that that's kind of where there's a conflict and a kind of dynamic going on. And then on the other side, you have software houses that want to get in our students and our hands as early as possible, because if you get them early, then you get them all life. And then when they become bosses of companies, they'll make sure that those companies will use those systems. So they have a certain interest in getting apps and technology in our hands, in our students' hands. And then the publishing houses are also trying to figure out how to get into that learning space. Like in a way, the MOOC has reinvented the textbook. So how do publishing houses play in that ecosystem? And we as universities, I guess in a digital age, we have to look at where are the opportunities and where are the risks. And these are just some of the things that we see. There is an opportunity to increase and improve the student experience. You know, we are a research-intensive university. We need to put teaching more front and center there. There is an opportunity to scale beyond our campus walls in ways that we couldn't foresee before. And there's wonderful opportunities to collaborate. I mean, this conference is, in a way, a very good example of that, of possibilities of collaborating both with industry and with other universities. But the risks, of course, are corporate capture. So how do we make sure we have contracts that don't give away exclusivity of our content and the way we teach things, that we're not locked into some kind of vending situation? And I think those are really important questions that 20 or 30 years ago were less difficult to solve, or but now we have to be very, very careful. Also when it comes to data privacy and data security. And then there is the risk of reputation loss and revenue loss. You know, what do you do if you don't? What happens if you don't participate in this system? And then the third kind of trending thing that we see is I just wanted to show you some technology trends that we've been looking at and saying, okay, those are interesting experimental areas that we would like to at least try something in the coming years. So this is just what we see in the marketplace developing. People are coming up with solutions. We don't know which ones are going to be very successful, which one are going to keep, and I just want to briefly touch upon. I mean, the whole MOOC development, I think the critical part there is that it's one person reaching thousands, but teaching one person at a time. And that's kind of like the dynamic. It's like it's less distant learning, but you're able to scale. And I think that's an important inflection. The second is that it also asks for a fundamental rethink of the textbook, where in the old days we got a textbook and you had this note at the back saying, go to this website. Now it's almost the other way around. And this book is actually Immersive Linear Algebra, is an interactive online textbook that is open for free for everyone to use, which has all the linear algebra basics that you would require as a digital textbook. And the nice thing there is that it has interactive graphs, you can ask questions, there's forum. So it's kind of like it's almost the opposite of a MOOC, but it's kind of like a mirror image of a MOOC approach. The other thing that I found really interesting is what the University of Michigan has been doing with something called teach-outs. So they had sit-ins and teach-ins in the 60s where students demanded certain topics to be taught to them. This was as part of the Vietnam War critique, etc. And they took that concept from the 60s and they said, what happens if we take the latest and greatest research we have and we teach it out? We just create these small packages and we make sure that professionals or interested people just get that research insight just in time through these teach-outs. I think that's a really fascinating development. I think mixed reality is really a very interesting field, especially in medicine. We've done there's tons of stuff happening around anatomy right now, where it's about how do you really explain the pathology with the imaging and actually the clinical skills in the actual operating theater. How do you get that layered in? And augmented reality can actually provide a whole different way of doing that. So imagine a classroom where you walk in and you just use the augmented reality for 10, 20 minutes to get a certain concept across. So it's really a different thinking about how we organize education. Another thing that we see come up is boot camps. Those are really hip companies that are saying, let us get you through a 6 months, 12 months program. You'll pay us an X amount and we will skill you in a certain topic area. Mostly around coding, but I think that will go into different directions in the coming years. So imagine nursing as a boot camp, or senior consultant, sorry, not senior consultant, I forget the names, I have to translate from Dutch, but like just below GP there are some other areas where you can get senior nursing or senior skills up through boot camps. The other thing is virtual tutors and teachers to support students. Chats, you see them in the e-commerce business work really well, and how do you then translate them into the education system? There's a big opportunity there. Another trend is micro campuses. A lot of universities started campuses, big campuses in different parts of the world, and I think people are now looking, okay, what can we do in partnership? This is where partnerships come in. So could we actually create a joint micro campus with the University of Maputo, or a university in Beijing or in Shanghai or in Brazil, and then see how we can actually do collaboration without without having to do joint degrees. That's sometimes a big challenge to do. And the last thing, I can't talk about the future of technology without mentioning blockchain, so I had to put something there. Again, I don't know. I still don't understand the concept completely. I had a couple of companies come to say they're going to change the way we do credentialing and that we can really verify diplomas. We're looking at it. We're not that convinced yet, but it's definitely something is in that market, and I don't want to, let's put it this way, I do have a little bit of FOMO, fear of missing out. So I don't want to then be the one that said that was a bad idea and then it became really, really great. So what does that mean is that I wanted to highlight some different shifts in paradigms in the way we learn and teach. So we go from just-in-case learning to just-in-time. That's kind of the teach-out concept. Like, how do you get the right learning in the right hands of the students? Medical is a really interesting field for that. For example, clinical placements. Like, we actually don't provide a really great service in terms of the student-patient lecture interaction when they are on placement. And I think technology can be really interesting to help there, especially when it comes to showing good cases. Second is that really working away from content-based to problem-based or team-based learning, which again asks a lot from our teachers. And how do we get them to be able to do that properly? Then from evidence-based to real-time analytics, I think that we, especially if you're able to integrate some of the data that we capture in a good way, can we then help steer the way we organize the learning journey? And then move away from a sage on the stage to a guide on the side. So the lecture has a place. The lecture and the inspiring lecturer has a really important place in university. But what we've done is we kind of replicated it across all possible purposes. While for some learning, you don't need a lecture theater or a lecture hall. Right, so we need to. So again, I'm not against the lecture. I just think it needs to be put in the right context and in the right place. And from unscalable to scalable, almost from a lot of teaching is a boutique exercise, is a boutique shop, and we kind of want to move it to a more operations situation. So that's the kind of new paradigm. And what you see on this side is kids on their cell phone next to I'm from Holland, so it's the Dutch Rembrandt painting, the Nachtwacht. And we have to also be careful. Technology, this is a problem, right? Like, this is not good. I don't think that's good. I don't think that's a great kind of development. So how do we do literacy in a digital age? Like that is I have only 5 minutes. Let me move quickly. So some ideas. So at Imperial we have a three-pronged strategy. One is to really focus on our student and teacher experience, and I think teacher experience is a really important element that we're not highlighting enough. Secondly, we want to pioneer new ways of learning through innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. I mean, we are a STEM university and we have a lot of entrepreneurs around, so we kind of want to harness that for EdTech. And then third is really extend impact beyond the campus walls. So taking it global, but also in our local communities, what digital can do. So that's in a nutshell the strategy, and I wanted to give you 3 examples of how we are implementing this strategy. So one is a model, and we're still building on that. We're trying to figure out how to integrate this, and we're especially interested in this in the medical sphere, is that on the one hand, we have a physical curriculum, if you will. You know, you come into a class and you have a physical experience, so, or a hospital experience or a lab experience, and we need to rethink the way we set up the classroom for that. So we have, we're currently in South Kensington, we're building one large experimental classroom so we can try different things in terms of pedagogy and facilities and the chairs. And for example, one of the big projects is to get rid of this thing. You know, like we don't want this anymore, but you know, as you said, you come in and you always try to get the technology. We're trying to figure out what to do with it. Probably get it wrong, but the idea is to get it wrong like 10, 20 times. And then we also want to assess like what are the real tools that we use in the classroom. And the problem is that Mentimeter is great, but it doesn't integrate into any learning analytics yet. And that could be a great avenue. HoloLens in terms of the physical space, and the Augment, and Pratique is an online assessment form. And then we have the digital curriculum, which we think is consisting of 2 levels. One is the connected online community, which is really the synchronous part, where you can use Zoom. I don't know how many of you use Slack already, but our teachers are using Slack with their students. So what happens to parts of our own system, but it's not, so there's all kinds of questions. We have a curriculum map online where students can interact with their curriculum. It's called Sophia. And we do a lot of WordPress development because it's easy to get sites online. And chatbots for education is definitely an area of interest. And then the third level is essentially the fully digital online experience, which has lower touch than the higher engagement pieces. And there we currently partner with edX, Coursera, and we have an instance of Open edX to run on. So that's the way we look at the learning and teaching experience, and it's all about the connections between them. The second thing is about local and global impact. We thought, okay, where can we make the biggest difference? So we've announced a full online degree in public health that is coming. The first content will come online in January. We're currently building that, and in October the first cohort will go. And the idea is the content is open for all. Everybody can take it, and we're really looking at how to partner with other hospital systems or healthcare providers to enable them to use the content and skill people up globally. So it's a global master's in public health. And the other area that we really think we as Imperial can make a difference is in maths. Everybody's doing machine learning, and everybody's doing data science, and AI is really amazing. But, and this, I'm not the expert, but I was told that the basis of all of this is linear algebra, statistics, and basic programming. So what we've done is we put out a course called Mathematics for Machine Learning as a MOOC on Coursera. It's currently number 6 in the performance of the MOOCs on the platform, which means there's a huge demand. And what we wanted to do is to give people the basics, the fundamentals that they need to not make mistakes when they are going to next level courses in AI. And I think that that's a way we would like to look at it. I don't think I have time to show you the video on the public health, so I'll send that as a link after. And then last thing about innovation, I just wanted to show you this, because our academics are amazing. They are developing innovations constantly, and our job is often to just capture that and help them scale it or bring that further. So this is a project by Professor Kevin Buzzard. And Kevin Buzzard is a pure mathematician, and his mission in life is to beat all mathematicians in the world, and he will tell you so. And what he's done is he built an online tool. It's open. It's on WordPress. It's called Zena. Her name is Zena, and she's a if you want an AI or a student of his, but she needs to be taught. And he created a class where his students, first years, undergrad pure math, have to teach the AI to pass his course. So that's like really thinking about education in a whole different way. And what we've done now is we've supported him to bring Europe students together and really build this out as a kind of collaborative development tool. And I think that's just fascinating. And we need more of those type of ideas, because it's bringing research and education really close together. And then my last slide, and I'll be quick. So what does that mean for digital? This is digital transformation happening, and then some lessons for digital transformation. On the one hand, we have to work with the early innovators and early adopters. That's important. But the problem is often that step to early majority and late majority in terms of adoption of technology, and also the lot of inertia often when you come and say, oh, we're going to do this totally different. So that doesn't really work. So we have a really bottom-up approach, and it has to be supported by leadership, and it has to show certain flexibility. Must be faculty-led. Intra-college alignment is super important. Content has to be excellent. And the physical digital infrastructure that you have in place, you have to rethink about that. And we have some models that are maybe of interest. We think partnerships is the way to go. Like, we cannot do it all ourselves in-house. It would be great, but it's really about leveraging niche applications and niche partners that can help us in specific areas. You need budget, like that's a fact. And some of it is definitely a cost before you can make any revenue. It's also about investing in something you've underinvested in, we have found. And outreach is another really important thing. Like, how do you bring that to bear across beyond your own institution? And I think one theme in terms of the way we're looking at transformation is the notion of ambidexterity. And that's what I wanted to leave you with. It's the ability to do innovation and maintenance at the same time. You have to be able to steer a large organization while you remain working on innovation and new things. And that dynamics of being an ambidexter organization is really, really critical, but also very difficult. So thank you. Was this in time? Yes? Okay, so I was approved there. Thank you very much. I hope this was useful. Any questions or answers?
So with all this, right, it's very exciting to hear the different innovations that you showed us. But as you know, you're kind of like concentrating on the early adopters, and uptake still remains a challenge. So, and the problem with digital technologies is that it's moving at a fast rate compared to before, and it's just a constantly moving target. So you're talking about ambidexterity, but in practical sense, what is it that you would want to capitalize on and to concentrate on, because there's too much of those innovations? Yeah.
That's a really good question. So I struggle with that every day, and if you have some answers, let me know, because it's really a challenge. But I think what we're trying to do is two things. On the one hand, we want to just enable a lot of people to try things and do things differently, and be open to that. So we have a system where people can just come with their ideas, and then we start working with them. And it doesn't matter in which field that is. And that's kind of like let 1,000 flower blooms, but at the same time, what we want to do is to focus some of those channels more directly. As we see successes develop, as we see something really take up, then we build on top of that. So for example, the mathematics for machine learning, we didn't know that was going to be so successful. So now we are looking, okay, how can we expand on that? And that creates a lot of interest across the academic faculty to say, okay, I want to be part of this and I want to do this. And then we run a small unit that is central, but I think what is critical is how we get that into the faculties and into the day-to-day operations, because I don't have any illusions that what we're doing is maybe exciting and we can show really nice slides about it, but it's really a small fraction of what we do as a university as a whole. You know, the university is a mega machine that really does a lot of big processes. So the question is, how do you get those into the rest of the organization? And we have a fortunate situation that we only have 4 faculties, so that's manageable. And in each faculties, we have an EdTech lab that does maintenance, and now we are adding a component for innovation. And our strategy from the learning and teaching perspective is that all our faculties are going on under curriculum review. So there is a top-down kind of curriculum review request that translates into pedagogy transformation. And that's pedagogy transformation, not digital. And then we come in to kind of look at what we would do together. So that's kind of the model that we work through, and we hope it works, but we're very, we're here to learn in that sense.